I got up on skis on Saturday, so I'm happy at 51 that happened.
Goodness. Heavens, yes.
But my dad said he could still do it at 71, so I don't know.
I never could. even
I did as a kid, so it was easy for me. Yeah, I got up twice right away, no problem.
What the heck happened here? Ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the June 8th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Gina, would you roll call, please?
Michael Gonzalez,
Here.
Mark Piontek,
Here.
Mayor Hagedorn, John Borgman,
Here.
Ken Shear,
Here.
Chuck Watson,
Here.
Chad Briggs,
Here.
Matt Coleman,
Here.
Mike Wood,
Here.
Aaron Beckman,
Here.
Jeff Peck.
Here. Please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, the first order of business tonight is I would like to welcome Matt Coleman, our newest member of the commission. He was out of town, out of the country, and out of state for the last two meetings, but welcome, Matt. Glad
to
to
be
have
here.
you on board.
When the mayor asked me to do it, he said the biggest thing was, do you have time to be at the meetings? I'm like, yeah, I'll be at all the meetings. And then I missed the first two. So I promise you guys will see more of me than you want to. So
That's good.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes, thank you. Everyone should have had a chance to read the minutes from the May 22nd special meeting. That was probably the longest meeting I've ever conducted.
So long.
I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve the minutes from the May 22nd, 2026 special meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. File number 260502, code changes, downtown parking regulations, discussion, recommendation, City of Washington. Aaron?
Yes. Good evening, Commission. This is something we discussed and subsequently tabled the last Planning Commission meeting. For those of you all who were not here, I've got a presentation. And for those of you who were here, I'll kind of try to go over the parts I covered last time quickly, and I have some more information. Additionally, I've put some documents on your desk. John Borgman asked me some very good questions earlier this week, and I've hopefully answered his questions, and we can get into that as needed. So. Starting off here, we are proposing some regulations for our C3 Central Commercial Zoning District, which is the light blue area that you see on screen, and parking regulations in this area. So C3, mostly contiguous with downtown Washington. Much of downtown Washington was developed before the invention of cars, so parking was not a consideration. Businesses in downtown don't need to provide a large amount of surface parking to get business, as most customers park wherever there is availability and walk to their destination. If every business were to provide the same amount of parking as other parts of Washington, downtown would be full of surface parking. This does not mean by any stretch of the meaning that parking is not needed in this area. The city has facilitated this need by providing free street and off-street parking across downtown. This gives visitors and residents a place to store their vehicle while they walk around or live downtown. Providing shared parking also prevents the demolition of historic structures for surface parking. These historic buildings are what make downtown Washington unique and keep visitors coming back, i.e. Downtown is a pleasant place to be as a pedestrian due to the street design, wide sidewalks, and each business not having their own surface parking lot. There's a lot of places, across the country that look like, Highway 47 and 100. There are not a lot of places that look like downtown Washington, and that's because of that historic character that we have. So talking about the actual rules that are to be discussed tonight, specifically this is in our off-street parking and loading requirements. So there are exceptions to the minimum off-street parking and loading requirements. So there is an exception for the C3 district that we just mentioned, and that exception is specifically that any reoccupancy of an existing building or structure is exempt from our off-street parking regulations. But when you're building a new structure, you're required to meet the same off-street parking as is required in the rest of Washington, Missouri. This was not always the case, though. Previous to our most current major code overhaul from the 1990s to 2016, there were no off-street parking. There was no off-street parking required downtown. And in fact, up until about 5 months ago or so, staff was under the belief that we did not have off-street parking requirements downtown. And so the language changed there, but we did not actively enforce it. And this is where it gets kind of interesting here, is because all of the infill that we've had in the past 9 or so years since that code, even though the city has not enforced this code, the development community has met the need for, that's maybe the wrong way to put it. The development community has inadvertently followed our own rules, even though we have not enforced them. They've just said, oh, we think that 1 East Main, for example, will sell better if it has off-street parking. And they chose to do that, and they happen to meet our off-street parking requirements. Same for all of the residential infill downtown, all with, off-street garage spaces, meets our parking requirements there. Getting into some of the new material that we're going to be talking about, what was something that was asked of me was to research some peer communities and see what they do to regulate parking in their downtowns. So taking a look at Kirkwood, this is what they consider downtown, kind of that central node there by the Amtrak stop and Kirkwood Road there. Specifically, they have similar off-street parking requirements for most uses downtown, but specifically new buildings constructed with a DEP. This is the only building type where they have completely eliminated parking requirements. So a building that is, kind of shields a parking lot or a parking garage here, they are not required to meet, they call them linear buildings. They are not required to meet off-street parking requirements. Additionally, they also have a similar provision that the change of use shall not be required, shall be exempt from additional parking requirements. So if you're moving from a low-intensity use from, office to I don't know that this would ever happen, but a restaurant or something like that would require more off-street parking. You don't have to provide that additional off-street parking if you're reusing a structure in downtown Kirkwood. Another peer community, Union, Missouri. They just completely, all new development in their downtown zoning district is exempt from on-street parking. And New Haven is also this way. So 2 other Franklin County communities that are have similar parking requirements to Washington, but less strict, I guess. The city of Alton, Illinois, they also are another historic river town, and their off-street parking downtown reads, off-street parking spaces shall be required for all uses in zoning districts except the downtown commercial district, marina recreation district, where off-street parking shall not be required. Off-street loading facilities shall be provided, blah, blah, blah. And that's this area in their downtown. They don't have as much, or they have not had as much residential or commercial infill within the same period that Washington has, but the built environment, they seem to have a lot of historic buildings, and those historic buildings seem to be getting rehabbed fairly regularly. So seems to be doing them fine. Another strategy for off-street parking in a downtown district would be what Edwardsville, Illinois does. They state that commercial uses in the central business district shall be exempt from the parking space requirements if they are located within 300 feet of a public parking lot. This is a fairly common strategy when it comes to parking requirements downtown. This is Edwardsville, Illinois, downtown, and as you can see, there's a fair amount of surface parking in their downtown. So when you go out 300 feet from each of those parking lots, you've got a fair amount of their downtown that is exempt from off-street parking requirements, but you do have this section in the middle here where, you know, you got some office buildings and, yeah, Matt, do you have a question?
The public parking, is there a size, or does it just say any public parking?
It says any public parking.
So 2 spots.
It could be, yes, and that's actually where we're going to get into on my next slide. I did the same exercise with downtown Washington, and so like, for example, you know, the spots at Lafayette Square here, there's like 15 spots are there, you know, but it's 300 feet out from that is, you know, pretty significant. But anywho, this is the result if you were to, you know, expand upon 300 feet. Another peer community, Jefferson City, they also do have a reduced parking for uses near municipal parking lots. They expand that 500 feet out of their downtown zoning district. But they also do something which is another common tool that's used in downtown parking regulation. This B here, reduced parking for uses with adjacent on-street parking. Where on-street parking exists on a street adjacent to a new or expanded use located within the Old Town District, the required number of off-street parking spaces for a new or expanded use may be reduced by 1 space for each 25 feet of frontage on the street with a maximum reduction, and then it goes into that. But apply this to Washington. These next couple slides are just kind of taking a look at what if we were to adopt, reduced off-street parking requirements. So we kind of go into some common uses downtown, and this is an example parcel at the corner of 3rd and Oak here. No one is planning on redeveloping this, but you know, this is just an example of, you know, a development site. So if you were to build a retail outfit here, it would be required 45 spaces, an office use 70, amusement center 313, event space 156, and 2 restaurants, because that's an awful big space for just 1 restaurant, 209 spaces. So a 10% reduction, you can see here, not super significant, you know, you get off a few spaces, but it would still kind of, the overall, auto-oriented, space calculation, in my professional opinion, a 10% reduction, you're essentially sticking with the original intention of the off-street parking requirements. When you get into a 50% reduction, that starts to make some more sense to me. Retail, 22 spaces, office 35, amusement center 156. So you still are requiring a significant amount of off-street parking, but it starts to make some sense, when you consider, that there are a lot of shared use parking facilities in the surrounding area. Getting into, we're not going to go over all these, but these are a list of Missouri cities with no downtown parking requirements. And I've got a statistic later that goes into I believe it's 22% of all Missouri communities over 1,000 people have or don't require parking in their downtown. And some notable examples here, Kansas City, St. Louis are some big ones here, and you got a lot of mid-size suburban. You got a good diversity of communities here, real rural communities, suburban communities. So communities all over have adopted this approach. And getting into some survey results, the planning department partnered with Downtown Washington to survey business owners about parking downtown to better understand the conditions on the ground. And Becky was great to work with, and she really did a good job at getting a variety of responses for business owners. So we got 24 responses from operating retail, restaurants, professional services, entertainment, service-based businesses. Really kind of the whole gambit of what downtown is. So, just kind of getting into it here, half of the businesses surveyed stated customer parking availability was favorable, either rating a 4 or a 5 out of 5 during typical business hours. And residents thought that festivals and Saturdays are when parking is limited the most, which, makes sense. That's when most people are coming to downtown Washington. Most residents agreed either limited parking availability and foot traffic both had a significant impact on their business. Over 65% of respondents thought additional foot traffic downtown would improve their business. Half of the respondents thought additional public parking would improve their business. Over 70% of respondents thought additional residential development downtown would improve their business. Over half thought that additional commercial development would improve their business. So kind of just to summarize here, an overwhelming majority of business owners agree additional development downtown will benefit their bottom line and in turn the local economy. Getting into some staff thoughts about my overarching recommendations. My recommendation to you tonight is still to remove off-street parking requirements in the downtown district for new development. However, I would like to have a discussion about that and see where the commission's head is at given this information, and I'm recommending that for the following reasons. Requiring infill development downtown to provide the same amount of parking as development around some of the more suburban areas of Washington is irresponsible zoning practice that ignores the existing walkable environment of downtown. It may also limit infill development to bring more visitors to the area, increasing the vibrancy and success that downtown has had. On the financial side, parking lots do not pay sales tax, have low property values, and as a result, barely pay any property taxes, not funding some of the services that we rely on. Restricting development without off-street parking in an area where shared use parking facilities are present is redundant. Before 2016, we did not have this requirement. Developers are not going to invest millions of dollars into downtown if they do not believe their patrons cannot get to their business. And as I said earlier, 22% of all cities do not require parking in their downtown. So planning department open to a conversation regarding parking minimums. This has been the position of the city for the past 36 years. The only reason that it is not the case is a consultant put their standard language into the code. The past two city planners and city administrator were under the belief new development in downtown Washington was not required to provide off-street parking. The lack of parking requirements keeps our downtown competitive and is not another layer of bureaucracy business owners and developers must complete when looking to be in Washington. And just some questions to kind of close out and to think about as we're having this discussion. Why do businesses choose to be downtown? What makes downtown successful? Why do businesses choose to leave downtown? Why do businesses choose to move downtown? And what street design, businesses, and building types create an enjoyable downtown? And with that, I'll take some questions and comments, and we'll have a discussion.
I would say you definitely did a lot of analysis, Aaron, so good work. It's interesting understanding we have about 2,500 parking spots downtown. I think it's hard for me to understand the ratio, how much would we expect there to be, maybe given our certain, how many businesses, that kind of thing. But in my mind, I don't see the value added of requiring minimum off-street parking. I don't see it, especially given, talking to people coming from out of town on the Amtrak, they won't need parking, whether that's that all the way to, we do have a decent amount of public parking just aesthetically. Me looking at it, I think we have a decent amount, but what I'd be really interested in is understanding more of a ratio. Not so much of we have this many parking spots, but what would you say is most common in towns like the St. Charles, the Union, the other ones? So per capita or something like that. Because it's one thing to know we have this many spots, but I just don't know if that's good for our size, if it's less than normal, that kind of thing.
Like ratio for daytime downtown population, or what exactly are you?
Exactly.
Okay, something like that. Yeah,
Something
I can figure out
similar
that
to
statistic. Yeah.
I just think it would give more context to it.
Sure.
I don't know if we could understand what that is comparatively to other communities, but that's kind of what we're getting at. We're not worried about the festivals, I don't think. We're going to have 1 million people downtown. But it's
Just every
understanding.
day, yeah.
Okay. The day to day.
So was St. Charles on your list of that has no?
I believe they do have some parking requirements downtown. I looked at their required off-street parking. I don't recall what it was offhand, but I know that they're like us and they don't. I believe they don't require. I would have to just judging how their main street looks. I would venture to guess when you have a reoccupancy of a business, they don't require additional off-street parking spaces for that zoning district, but the city by and large does.
I think St. Charles, and I may not be correct in this, but in my experience, they have private parking lots. So the business comes in and they've got 6 or 8 or 10 spots that are marked private, and they don't allow any public parking in those spots in St. Charles.
And we have to too.
Right, but do we enforce it? I don't know if we enforce it as, in the same capacity, I don't know.
I just bring that up because, you know, I see Kansas City and St. Charles, those other jurisdictions I don't spend a lot of time in, but, and I know Kansas City and St. Louis isn't really a good match, that's why I ask about St. Charles, because I know parking in St. Louis is a disaster. And I'm just curious, I don't think St. Charles is that great either.
But you do the walkability. I mean, the times I've been over there, you park down on the riverfront and you walk.
Yeah,
wherever you're
and
gonna
maybe
go.
it's a festival that I'm complaining about, like you said, a festival's gonna be bad no matter when you go.
Right.
I've been to St. Charles for festivals, and you just have to walk a few blocks. Like, you know that going to it, it's gonna be crowded.
My only comment is, but for the former planning consultant inadvertently making this change to your zoning regulations, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Or, in fact, until just recently, I thought we had no parking requirements, no off-street parking downtown. That was always the understanding.
Yeah, and when we did that, that time, I don't remember that we talked about parking specifically.
I don't
that
recall it
remember.
either.
I think it just was, you know, thought we were gonna keep it the same, and evidently we didn't. And it's come to light, so, I guess my comment would be from 1990 to 2016, if it wasn't broke, why do we need to fix it?
I'd say if anything now, we want to remove as even more probably bureaucratic type of barriers to investing in downtown. So the fact that we added more to it in the last decade, I would agree with Aaron's suggestion, recommendation of removing it from downtown.
I think I commented on this at in May's meeting. I know a lot of folks were out of town with stuff and everything. That's part of the reason we tabled it here, you know. I would like to see the downtown parking requirement gone. I think it's putting a burden on some of our lots. The best example I've been able to come up with over the last month is probably the lot next to Drogies that I believe Bill Dickinson owns. That's where the building John Claycamp had that collapsed 20 years ago. I think all of us would love to see a building back on Main Street there. And right now, there's probably, I don't know how many parking spaces in there, I'm guessing around 15.
I think I counted. It's in the, let's see. It's in the spreadsheet.
Whatever that.
I don't know what I
number is,
labeled it, but
He's not gonna be able to get that, you know, you wouldn't be able to get that number without finding spaces somewhere else.
yeah, I said about 18.
Okay. So I guess, you know, and when I look at that building, you know, obviously there was a building there 20 years ago and before that for probably 100 years.
Yeah.
And we made it work, right? My only concern with getting rid of this altogether is that the scale of development downtown has been changing, right? And a lot of our lots are little bitty lots. They're not big lots. So if you do a building on that lot of Bill Dickinson's, you're talking about replacing somewhere around 15, 18, 20 cars, right? Some of the developments we've been talking about recently, we're talking about hundreds of cars. And what I kind of would like to know is, can we have a system, is there a way to put a safeguard in that when we get to a certain number of spaces that would be required, and I don't know what that number is, that kicks in some kind of protection that a conditional or special use or something would be required, that there would be something more to it than just automatic approval. So that when we get a development, you know, I wanna see those developments, but I wanna see those developments done in a way that doesn't place a burden on our existing businesses or potentially put our existing businesses in a bad spot where we've got people fighting over parking downtown. That's my only real concern I have with completely getting rid of the parking requirements.
And I think it also depends on what you're talking about putting in there.
Exactly.
True, and you look at
I mean, if-
Joe's Bakery and them and stuff too, exactly. I mean, he's only got, what, about 3 spots in front of his small building and stuff, and
The building, Andy developed, the old Pecca's building there.
Yeah, Western Auto, yeah.
The folks that are living upstairs there now, for example, in the dress shop below, that building has no parking of its own, right? And it's been there a real long time. So if we develop and we fill that parking, if those people that live there, when they come home from work at night, if they don't have a place to park, how long is somebody gonna be living there, right? And that's, we've made a lot of progress downtown. I feel like we've got a lot of motivation, and we've got a lot of great things happening downtown in the last 10 years, 15 years probably. But I'd like to see that keep going. I just don't want to create a situation where we're inadvertently throwing the brakes on it.
Well, the same thing, I think you take the lot where the building collapsed, could you do something where it was retail below and residential above, and put parking back behind it? I don't know. But you might have enough parking spots for those residential units that were back there. You may not have it for the retail space. To do it. And I think that's the type of development that we've seen take off on downtown, is that mixed-use development. And I think that's what we want. I think that's what we want to encourage, is to make it that way. There's some big lots down there that you could put an awful big building on and attract an awful lot of people down there. And like Ken said, it's going to affect other people's businesses that are down there.
Well, I think to both of your points, that building in that spot is exactly what you're saying. Retail downstairs, residential upstairs, and it requires 6, 8, 10 spots, whatever it may be. And I think we're all okay with
If you're
that.
going to build it, you want to do it that way to make it marketable for the people that are
Correct,
going to live
right,
there.
and that's
I
what
mean,
the other houses have been doing, Main and Market, and et cetera. My concern is Main and Jefferson, we've discussed the bowling alley. And I know it came about in council, they were looking for a 0 lot line. We didn't discuss parking at that time, but the question was asked. And I know Aaron's answer was 400 and some spots, if I'm not mistaken. It was 426 spots. So in that aspect, right, so.
That's not
okay,
happening.
yeah, I'm sorry?
That's obviously not happening.
Obviously not happening, that's right. So then it's a decision to make, do you cut it down by 10%? Do you cut it down by 50%? But in this proposal, it's down to 0. And now we make no requirement for off-street parking for a spot that would require 426 parking spots downtown. To Ken's point, depending on what the development is, it makes a difference.
And I'm not so sure we need a bowling alley in downtown Washington.
Well, I'm not saying that either.
But it's not my property. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? But I think if that's what they want to do, that's great. But I think we've also got to be here to protect those neighboring, not only businesses, but residents that are down there as well.
If they build that there and have a spot for 200, 300, 400 people and have 0 parking spots allocated, the people who live in your Western Auto building will not have a place to park when they come home. That's just, I'm not saying you have to have 400 spots, but there's no way we can have it.
And I'll change the subject a little bit. I'm not gonna pick on Jefferson and Main Street. I'll use Aaron's hypothetical lot.
Right.
Aaron, would you mind pulling that one up on the screen once? I believe your numbers, even at 50% reduction, if we had restaurants there, we were still like in the, what was it, 100?
2 restaurants was 109.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we're still talking hundreds.
Hundreds.
Even at that. 104. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where when I look at some of those things, if we do those larger scales, we're not talking picking up 20 cars. We can absorb 15, 20 cars. When we start talking hundreds of cars, that's when I think downtown's gonna struggle to be able to absorb that parking load.
and that's when you start losing the historic vibe and everything else and stuff too.
Didn't we allow the lumberyard where they tore down that building down there, didn't we allow them into the overlay district so they could have 0 lot lines?
Correct.
They have a parking requirement then when they build a new building?
They will.
Wow.
Under our current rules, yeah.
Wow.
Which
And that-
building are you speaking of, Mike?
Where he tore
Here,
down,
I'll-
where the
I'll pull
lumberyard
it
tore
up.
down the building back.
off of.
Yeah, so this
Main and
this
Jefferson.
this building, the building's still here. It used to be zoned residential, and it was zoned residential for many years. And last summer,
Yeah.
I think they came before this board and
Right.
requested rezoning, and
They wanted to
that
tear the
went
building
through.
down and
Mhm.
rebuild.
Do they own the lot across the Jefferson?
Yes,
Who?
yes. That the vacant one there is.
Oh, this?
is owned.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but Aaron, that's not included in the shaded downtown district.
What?
We let them in, that's what they came
This?
as far as to be put into the downtown district.
At the Washington Lumber lot at Market, and
Yep.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's-
think downtown Washington ever crossed Fifth Street.
No, it goes all the way down to Sixth Street. Because all the churches are involved in it.
Yep.
Emmanuel Lutheran, St. Peter's, all of them, we went down to
Right.
Sixth Street.
Yep. Wimpy's is in the downtown zoning district,
Okay.
and Wagner's office, coffee shop. This law off, or I don't know what this is, but thank you, accounting office.
Right.
So
So, dumb question. So you had that list of, I mean, could you exclude, is it possible to exclude amusement and event spaces from this? So they would still have to meet certain parking requirements, but you could exclude it for the other small type stuff? Because isn't that what we're concerned about? The small ones, you don't want any requirement, but we're worried a big one's gonna come in and need
That's the bureaucracy of the
400.
whole situation. Who, you gotta pick and choose who you're gonna require parking for and not.
Is it a square footage deal? If you build X number of square footage, you know, our linear frontage along the street, you're exempt. But if you go above a certain amount, and does it depend on what business goes in there? I mean, I think that's.
just
I'm gonna
seems-
speak for Aaron, but I think he wants to know that in advance.
Yeah.
That you can tell someone that, rather than come to a special use permit every time we need something.
Correct.
I get the problem.
But it seems like you gotta have some separation, because these are totally different businesses.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if the entertainment bowling thing would have come in before we did our comp plan, they could have come in and put that whole thing in there. and
I
then we
mean,
would have-
not. Well, they here's where it gets tricky. They probably would have been allowed to come in, but because Mark didn't know about it, no one knew about it, but would it have been actually permitted? No. But like before our comp, after 2017, they would have not been allowed. But they probably would, if that makes sense.
Because the comp plan wasn't aligned to the comprehensive plan?
Huh?
Because it wasn't aligned to the comprehensive plan, or why?
Well, I guess I'm sorry, Chuck. I don't really understand your point.
Well,
Our comp plan started 2023,
Sure.
okay? Before that, was there no parking requirements then? No off-street parking requirement then?
The parking
And it became after 2016.
after 2016, yeah, the comp plan doesn't necessarily, I mean, our comp plan,
The comp plan is the one where I threw up the flag all of a sudden because of the ambiguous language and stuff like that.
No, the comp plan didn't talk about the parking.
But
That
it-
was under the code revision that we did in 2017.
Okay.
it does, I will say though that our comp plan, does support some sort of parking reform. It encourages infill downtown, things that, developments that are not possible, as we've talked about, the example on Main Street's a great example of that, that would not be.
Comp plan isn't codified.
Correct. Hmm.
The city code is.
Correct. Yep.
That's the difference.
got it. So I guess, well, just looking at what has been happening, just like what the market's driven apparently, is that they're gonna put in the parking that makes sense for the business that they have. I mean, just looking at the new developments we have this far that you mentioned, like one East Main Street, the other one's downtown. I mean, it's also could be me being optimistic that whatever we would have down there, they're not going to basically inhibit people
Yeah.
from coming to their business. Like, why would they
Aaron,
do that?
Did the bowling alley, did they ask for a variance on the parking?
They did.
Okay, so
That's where.
That's why we got it.
that's where this discussion
That's
kind of
right,
got
yep.
started a little
Yep.
bit.
And the Board of Adjustment turned it down.
Yep.
Because it kicked it back to planning and zoning to change.
But I mean, I would just, remind this board that, you know, even though the bowling alley development did spur this conversation, you know, it's good to think about other examples, you know, and places that this would apply, you know, because this is all of downtown. So,
Well, true. I mean, if it was, again, a hardware store, a different type of hardware store, or, I mean, even you're looking at Auto and Company as a furniture store. You know, if you look again at the furniture stores, the amount of space required for furniture stores and stuff too. If another one come in there, it's like it's gonna need a big parking lot and stuff too. It's according to what their space there says that they need also, you know.
And that's one of the things, after I looked at this weekend and studied it more, is I sent Aaron an email this morning and asked him 4 questions, basically. And that's what this handout is from tonight. And I've asked him to send that to everybody, what he sent me this morning, because you can read it a whole lot easier in the email spreadsheet.
yeah, when you try to print out an Excel document,
But anyway, I asked him 4 questions. How many parking spaces are currently available in downtown C3 zoning area, including off-street and on-street? Of all the spaces available, how many spaces are available in city-owned lots? And then of all the spaces available, how many spaces are available in shared agreement lots? Because we have some of those too. And then fourthly, which we don't have an answer for yet, are there private lot spaces we should pursue shared agreements for parking? So maybe there's some areas that the city could look into legal aspects of and come up with more spaces that could be utilized for something. So, and I know that's one of the reasons that when the bowling alley was being proposed, he said he owned the bank lot behind there and had a couple hundred spaces back there, I believe. So I think that's all part of this, you know, and I was shocked when I started looking at and I was first shocked when he got it back to me so quick today, and first of all, and then to be able to see where all those spaces are, I think is a good look at this too. So,
Did you say there was 22% of the cities that have no parking requirements in downtown?
22% of the Missouri cities with over 1,000 people.
So 78% do have some type of parking.
Correct, but a lot of those, well, I actually haven't done this math yet, but there are a good number more. Here, I'll just pull up this map. This was the tool that I sourced my information from, the Parking Reform Network. They have a lot of, let's see here.
What a job that would be.
They got a, let's see, they got a map here. Okay. Reduce.
Go down a rabbit hole and never find it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Do you think the AI does?
let's see, hold on. I thought there was a, well, hold on here.
Guess while you're doing that, just so I am clear, hypothetically, if they really wanted that bowling alley downtown, like legally, could they put it there? They could not, because of our current parking requirements, right?
They would have
If
to
we
meet the
said
parking
right now we wanted to get rid of them, then they legally could put a bowling alley downtown.
Sure, yeah,
Correct.
the parking requirements are the only planning thing that's
Right, only code
prohibiting.
violations, so they
Correct.
wouldn't need a variance, they wouldn't need any of that stuff.
For these, for your comparisons here of the cities that have no parking, for that to really be meaningful, you have to look at what uses are allowed in those downtowns. Maybe they don't allow bowling alleys and event spaces and auditoriums. Maybe they're all, you know, small retail where they don't allow residential or off-street parking or require off-street parking. So just the number of 22% really isn't meaningful unless you know what they allow and don't allow in those districts. And it also strikes me that we're trying to, and I think Rocco was kind of hitting around the edges of this, what we're trying to get to is restricting certain types of uses downtown by determining whether or not you have to have off-street parking or not.
Yeah.
When maybe the real solution is, look at what the permitted uses are in the C3 and revise those, instead of allowing a bowling alley of whatever
Exactly.
size or an event center of whatever size. Maybe that's the solution. Then you don't have these large,
Just go upstream, basically,
That's a problem.
by the code itself.
It's about what you were talking about.
That's a good point.
it seems like we're, the tail's wagging the dog here, instead of looking at what's the real issue. The issue is the uses and their requirements for parking, rather than trying to restrict the uses by mandating off-street parking or not.
So Aaron, could you pull up the C3 allowable
Sure. I will do that.
for us? 'Cause I don't remember what those all are.
Yeah, I don't offhand remember what they are. Okay. Well. Okay, so in the, let's see, so permitted uses, auto parts stores, and these are, these are permitted uses if they're located within 50 feet of a residential district. They shall only be permitted by special use permit. So repair of automobiles, farm implements, construction machinery, small engine-related services, body shops, public garages, car washes, new and used vehicle sales. Some of these I would like to take a look at in the future as permitted in downtown Washington. Drive-in, drive-through establishments, and then special uses. Proposed zero lot line, had one of those recently. Food stands, agricultural uses, nursery, truck gardening. That was, you remember Andy's, that's what they have a special use permit for. Any use similar, and then above ground storage tanks. Okay, and then on to the permitted and special uses. Let's see, harvesting services, special use permit, multifamily dwelling, single family detached, two-family dwelling, mobile home parks, nursing home.
These are things that are not allowed.
These are things that are allowed.
Are
Are allowed, yeah.
Hotels, retirement
I was gonna
homes.
say, down in like commercial, it's probably where we wanna go.
Okay. Is this commercial? Let's see, commercial.
Yeah.
Title services.
Agriculture, fertilizer, retail.
Let's see.
I guess the key for us, what we're describing also is if it requires a special use permit, then that would help us. Because in a way, I mean, obviously, if you were to add in 400 more potential people a day to a site, that's going to affect lighting, noise, going to affect a lot of different things through the special use permit process. So we would have some safeguards there if we did remove the parking minimum requirement still. Yeah, I mean, I'm just-
But with a special use permit, you have to start with the presumption that it's a permitted use. It's allowed. And it's only if there is no set of conditions or restrictions that you could place on it to alleviate any possible problems that you can turn it down. Otherwise, it's basically a permitted use.
got it.
It's a little different than the other way where,
Right.
as long as you put a buffer up, it's okay, or as long as you do this, it's okay. It's okay unless they don't meet.
Okay.
Yeah, most so on that, most commercial uses are permitted.
Good idea, Mark, but good God, look at the list.
I know, that's what I was just looking at.
There's a few options there.
This is, yeah, and this is something just not super related to this conversation, but I want to take a serious look at our permitted use table at some point in time, because there's some funny stuff on here.
And the other thing I have with use is, it may be, I keep bringing the term scale up, I think size has got to play into it at a point, because when we talk about like, event centers or something like that, you know, we've got other spaces in town, downtown, that we could consider event spaces. You know, it's a pretty vague term, that are small scale and aren't taking, you know, don't need large parking requirements to operate. So, you know, it's, at some point, I need to try to find a way that we can establish I don't know if it's a number of parking spaces, that if your development would require so many spaces, X kicks in, or, you know, how that materializes, what that threshold becomes. But, you know, we obviously don't wanna say we don't want restaurants downtown, we like restaurants, I like to eat, right?
You're here.
Yeah.
So,
Motion to approve.
we don't wanna do that sort of thing, right? But
Trying to look in the future, I mean, if this hotel goes through up there, there is
Right.
demand in that general vicinity. Some of it's owned by the same people, I understand, but that area down there is gonna become more congested, and what people build and are allowed to build in there to feed off the hotel. One, is a smart business sense, but two, is it affecting other businesses that are down there?
And that is a separate conversation that this commission can have at a later date if you so wish, so.
But I think it goes to the general question of what are we permitting and what are we not permitting?
Sure. I think from staff's perspective, Ken, I like your suggestions. If we are to regulate off-street parking, you know, kind of in a way that makes sense for downtown development to, you know, further, you know, the success that downtown has seen, square footage requirements, or you know, once you're over a certain parking threshold, that's a good way to, you know, not, or, you know, so, you know, we talk about, that's kind of what the discussion has been around is, you know, these large uses, you know, that have this exorbitant parking calculation. I think that that's a good way to say, hey, you know, small scale infill development, this makes sense in this location. We can absorb this amount of parking, but, you know, for, you know, large users, hey, maybe we should look at this. And that's something I can research. I haven't really seen many places do that approach, but I think if we are to regulate off-street parking downtown, that's kind of the direction I, you know, would feel most comfortable with. So it's something I can look into for sure.
Can you do it on a square footage aspect, or you could do it as, the way our code states now, if you would require 25 parking spaces, then you'd have to take a look at it. If it's under that, then then it would be exempt. I'm just throwing a number out there for example.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Rather than square footage, couldn't you do it by the number of people that are allowed in the building?
Well, it's occupancy.
That gets into building code, and
I don't think we have that.
Yeah, I don't.
Wow, a lot of people.
That's
yeah.
Well, and I think we have to think about staff review on this too, and what's gonna be the easy. We don't wanna force the citizens to have to come here for a special use permit and go through all those
Correct.
processes all the time. We've been trying to streamline that. And I think we need to kind of keep that in mind too, so that we don't make it a cumbersome process.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the more layers we put, the harder it's gonna be to develop, the more time we're gonna spend doing, like, here's these 25 variances we have to talk about now, or, you know.
And I like Darren's email that he sent, and I think everybody had a chance to look at that. I mean, he hit the nail on the head, really. That's here we are, you know, talking about it, and parking is, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted some numbers, just to see where we were. So, I don't know that we can make a decision tonight. I hate to table it again, but I think we've got some more research to do here yet, some more discussions.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Just about the survey results, just, so, what did the locals down there want? I mean, are they gonna freak out over a 0 parking requirements?
I don't know.
Some will, some won't.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. It depends on the individual business owner, because as you can see, I point out, 70 for most respondents agreed either limited parking availability and foot traffic impacted their business, but that means there's, 25% that they don't think that impacts their business at all downtown. So, there's always going to be a subsect of, owners who feel one way or the other. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a super great answer for
Yeah.
that, so.
I just
Well,
wonder
it's
if
not a
the-
cut and dried thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the challenge.
Depends on what kind of business you have down there.
Correct.
Exactly right.
It's not whether foot traffic.
And one would argue in general, with the downtown, you want more foot traffic. I mean, in general, for wanting a more like lively downtown, retail, all these kind of things, shops and restaurants.
Right.
More foot traffic is good.
Yep.
And I think you have to look at the residential that's going on down there too, because that's a huge part.
Very
of-
beneficial.
Very
The
beneficial.
walkability is wonderful.
Yeah, and keeping the downtown viable.
Yeah, over 70% of business owners thought additional residential development would improve their business.
Right.
Some meaningful way. And this was interesting to me on the commercial development. No business owners disagreed with the fact, I mean, 2 were unsure, but believed that additional commercial development would, or they disagreed with that statement. Yeah. So, but anywho, to discussion at large, I will research specifically, if that's the direction this board feels comfortable with, specifically square footage requirements. What other if there are other cities that have like a cap, and if they say, hey, these uses are not permitted, or if they make them special use permits, so I'll look into that, and we'll focus next month's discussion kind of around that topic, if that's okay with
I think
this
that
commission.
would be a good way to continue this. I would like to see also if you could send out the survey results.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
Yeah,
can
a lot of
do that.
I won't send out the full survey, because Becky asked about a variety of other things that aren't necessarily super relevant. So I'll send out the relevant stuff.
And
that,
then maybe the information that you printed out today.
absolutely.
By email also, because it's much easier to view as a spreadsheet than it is as a.
Yeah,
print.
yeah.
I think a place like St. Charles would be a good, I know they're bigger than us, but I think it'd be somewhere to start with a vibrant downtown in a city similar to our size, if we can find those.
Sure.
I know there's not probably a lot of them, but
Maybe Cape Girardeau?
Cape Girardeau,
Jeff City's trying to get more vibrant down on the riverfront, but I mean, that's such a whole different ball of wax
Right.
for the Capitol and state office buildings up there that I
Does
don't.
anyone else have any others they want me to look into?
I think we always compared to Sedalia,
yeah.
Yeah.
Cape Girardeau, and there was
What'd you say,
another
Mike?
river town.
Hannibal.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
Yeah,
Hannibal or
what about
Boonville?
Hannibal?
Yeah.
Yeah, Boonville.
Well,
would be Hannibal.
Hannibal would be a good one,
We've
too.
been,
Hannibal's got a good river
the
town.
Main Street has been compared to them in the
Yeah.
past, yeah.
Trying to see if any of these are on here. No. Okay.
See, on the Cape, you've got it said on there that they have no parking requirements, but,
Yeah, they might have reduced parking or something like that. So that's something I can
well,
look
yeah,
into.
but they might have other stipulations based on, again, their zoning
Sure.
their,
Yeah.
to start
Okay,
with.
so is everybody pretty much in agreement? We'll table this again till next month for more discussion and more information?
Do you need a
Okay.
motion for that, or no?
No.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Next item. File number 260503, code changes retail parking regulations discussion. Recommendation, City of Washington.
All right, good evening. Yeah, so this was tabled last month as well, and there were several items that the commission requested that I take a look at. For those of you that weren't here, I've got a I'll just go over what we got briefly here. So how this came about, just for some background information, is Lowe's requested a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces they required specifically to store additional material on their site. It was denied for not being a hardship, but as a result, the Board of Adjustment recommended this board examine parking standards for hardware stores to see if they were too excessive. And what that means is we have a definition for retail stores, but we also have this definition for furniture or appliance stores, hardware stores, wholesale equipment, machinery or equipment sales, clothing stores, shoe repair stores. They have a more intense parking requirement than general retail. So that's what we're that's the main code change that we're looking at. And the comprehensive plan recommends that we take a look at our off-street parking requirements and see what changes need to be done here. So specifically, we're proposing streamlining off-street parking requirements. So this board recommended, and subsequently changes were approved in 2024 that were intended to cover most retail uses in our shopping centers. But they did not apply to several uses which have more stringent parking requirements, which could be considered retail if they did not have their own use. So, we have this separate definition for hardware stores. They require 2 parking spaces, plus 1 additional parking space for each 300 square feet of floor area over 1,000 square feet. We also have a separate definition for convenience stores, which requires 1 space for each 250 square feet. So the goal of this code change would be to streamline our off-street parking requirements and just make one unified retail definition. So just taking a look at what that would look like in practice, I gathered some numbers here about what's the average size of a convenience store and of all the uses that we've discussed for furniture, appliance store, hardware store, so on and so forth. I took the average of all of the uses that we have currently operating in town and got about 50,000-ish square feet. And so when you take a convenience store use, that's at the national average. Currently, we require 10 parking spaces, but under our proposed parking regulations, which is the current retail parking definition, that would be 7 spaces. And then for all the uses I just listed, 174 to 150. Something that was discussed last month, taking a look at, was moving from just floor area to the actual sales floor, and so we have floor area defined as except otherwise, floor area shall include the sum of all area surfaces of all floors of a building measured from the exterior faces of exterior walls less than the floor area devoted to elevators, so on and so forth. And so taking a look, this was one of the only retail developments I could find building plans for in our system. But so you take that parking calculation for Aldi's. Now, granted, Aldi's was developed, or the parking lot for Aldi's was built before the building itself was built. But if it were to be, a greenfield, development, using the total building square footage, which is around 20,000 square feet, we would require 57 parking spaces. And I say that on screen here. 102 parking spaces, parking lot built prior to construction. They're only required to provide 80 parking spaces, 1 space for each 200 square feet. But with the new, excuse me, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. If Aldi were to be built as a greenfield site today under the regulations, they would be required to provide 57 off-street parking spaces. The proposal to move from just square footage of the building to this definition here, one parking space for each 350 square feet of interior floor area dedicated to the sale of goods. You would get somewhere around 37 parking spaces required for all these. So that would be the change, and that's just an example for, if we were to make that change on a real building that exists for interior floor area that's actually being used versus total building square footage. So I guess I'll stop there and we can discuss this item.
I think that makes more sense to use the actual use square footage
Yeah.
of the building as opposed to assessing them parking for storage areas. And I think we've talked about that before. It's been several years ago that we did. I'm trying to think which,
It was that, where tire went in, that was gonna be that,
Purcell,
yeah.
Purcell.
Well, Hobby Lobby was gonna go.
Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one.
But at the same time, it's like, you can sit there and still, I mean, if you don't want to sit there and make the calculations overly complex, just so that somebody's got to sit there and figure out exactly how much square footage is actually covered by shelves, and next time they set up shelves, they're gonna be 6-foot aisles instead of 8-foot aisles, and, whatever else. I mean, could you just adjust the number required for them based on, again, the overall square footage again and stuff too? Just on what you're gonna see is gonna be, whether it's a warehouse or a grocery store or whatever and stuff. I mean, you're still gonna have, furniture store, you're still gonna have a certain amount of floor space. It's gonna be warehouse, and a certain amount of floor space is gonna be display and stuff. You're not gonna have bazillion people in there all the time.
So Aaron, what would be the easier calculation to do? Would it be easier for you guys to review and go by square footage of the total building and reduce or increase the number of square feet of retail,
Well,
size, or what would-
admittedly, it would be easier to calculate the total square footage and just reduce the parking calculation outright. But I think that, it's not that much more difficult for staff, because we have to get building plans whenever anyone renovates a space. Is that something that planning in the past has been good at? Admittedly not, but it's something that I'm trying to work towards, and make sure that we catch more reoccupancies to kind of enforce those parking calculations. But this is all information that the building department, that we all get. We all look at this at site plan, so this is not. It's not much more of an ask to ask for, the actual usable space of a building. And I think that, as John said, that's a more accurate parking calculation as to, what's the space that's actually going to get used. So,
Right, and how
yeah.
many spaces are you actually gonna
Yeah.
need for the number of
Correct.
people that would probably be in that space?
So it is more difficult, but only slightly. And I think that it's a good change to make.
So what you were saying, Chuck, in this example, if we went to 450 square feet for Aldi's at 20,000 square feet, it would be 44.4 or 45 parking spaces, which would get pretty close to your 37 of retail.
But again, it's like, that's information that the architect can supply you without you guys. Since pretty much everything's gonna be computer generated to start with, they can easily calculate the square footage for those things at the same time also.
But I also think it's advantageous because you're gonna find some spot that has a larger storage room, smaller retail space, and therefore require less parking spots because of that. I just look at Washington Lumber, for example. You don't need parking spots for the lumberyard that's undercover.
Right.
You need it for the showroom part, and however many spots that are. And this is a complex but better way to say, we talked about this last month at Lowe's, is, I left that meeting saying, I've never seen Lowe's parking lot plumb full of vehicles.
No.
But yet we want to tell them they got to stop storing stuff out there. Now, site distance is a different object. If they want to store it out there, so site distance isn't an issue. But I think, to Aaron's point, yes, a little bit more difficult, but definitely achievable. the square foot of interior floor area space. That makes sense. A furniture store, the back room does not need to be included in your parking lot.
If you go to most major retail stores in Washington, the parking lots are almost never half full. Maybe some few times around Christmas time, but we are making these retailers putting these huge parking lots and they're not being utilized.
Right.
And we're wasting, our groundwater issue runoff is being affected by that because we have these huge parking lots with online retail sales now. A lot of people aren't even going to the stores except to pick it up, and they're not staying there very long. Like Aldi's has, I don't know exactly how, 6 or 7 different places where you can just pull up and they bring your food to you. So they're not, what I'm saying is, they're not staying there for 20 or 30 minutes at a time like what used to happen 15 or 20 years ago. A lot of people are just pulling up and getting their stuff and leaving in, less than 5 minutes.
Sure.
Well, again, like you say, I mean, the calculations for storing the water underneath the runoff and all the oil that's generated from
Yes.
on top of that and trying to maintain, our, whatever code, compliance with
Yeah.
the state and stuff like that.
MS4, yeah.
MS4 and stuff like that, it's like, it just keeps snowballing, adding to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one part of this code change. The other thing that we kind of got into was there are multiple, and these are not directly related to the whole Lowe's thing, but they were changes that I had noticed and thought, hey, this is going to require a public hearing anyway. These are things that I want to address and I think are pertinent to talk about while we're on the subject of parking. And so there are uses in the off-street parking regulations with multiple definitions. This makes parking calculation variable for staff when determining the amount of parking uses required. And so these are banquet centers, bingo halls, lodges, reception halls, and then we also have a definition for entertainment, assembly, or exhibition places, all without fixed seats. They have different parking calculations, and then restaurant, nightclub, or cafe, drive-in restaurant or establishment serving meals to lunches, patrons either in their cars or in the building, and those have different parking calculations. And so the proposal last time was remove, both are these top two definitions here, and just stick to one on a definition on a per square footage basis. The discussion last time, though, was around the commission requested to review best practices for a club / nightclub / bar and the parking that they're required. Moving from a space per seat to a space per square foot calculation is easier for staff to enforce. You're not required to review building renovations, and seating availability is subject to change. So I'm proposing a new all-encompassing definition for drinking establishments as follows. An establishment that is devoted to the serving of alcoholic beverages, where food is only incidental to the consumption of these beverages, and that's defined as a tavern in our use table, so it's permitted in all of our commercial, industrial, and planned commercial and industrial and mixed-use zoning districts. So here are some regional bar parking space regulations. In St. One space per each 175 square feet. Jefferson City, a bar tavern, 1 parking space per each 100 square feet. And then in Blue Springs, Missouri, 1 space for each 75 square feet. So you kind of got the gambit of space requirements here. What makes this tricky is in Washington, Missouri, all of our bars do not have off-street parking. So 1 space per 75 square feet below are businesses that would fall under the drinking establishment definition, and the average square footage is 1,485 square feet. So just taking a look at let's see, 1861 social house here. I'm comparing it to when you take a look at all these requirements. 1 space per 75 square feet, that would require 20 spaces. 100 square feet, 15 spaces. A building of this size and 1 space per 125 square feet, 8 spaces. I'm recommending that we adopt the 1 space per 175 square feet parking calculation, primarily because we don't want to encourage, drunk driving, and bars, are best to have a lower parking calculation for that reason. And just to kind of give you an idea about establishments that have a similar parking calculation and might experience similar traffic volumes, animal hospitals, banks, and other financial institutions. Obviously, at very different times of day than a drinking establishment, but definitely a similar amount of people. So with that, I'll take any questions on that specific piece.
Aaron, how would we handle patio spaces and decks?
I've seen it done either way. I've seen, the parking calculation,
Is included.
include the deck, and I've seen it say, only interior space. So that's up for this commission I'm okay either way, so it's whatever this commission decides.
That would be part of the seating arrangement, so I think you would have to include it, wouldn't you? I mean, even though it wouldn't be a year-round thing,
Sure.
I think you would still have to include it just for the summer days when,
If you pull up the image of the social house on Fifth Street, you've got almost as much seating in that building outside as you do, that building's not very big if you've ever
Right.
been in it. It's
Sure.
a pretty small structure. You've got almost as much seating outside as you do inside that building.
The other thing to, consider is this conversation is kind of hand in hand with, our last conversation about, it's sort of related to, our conversation about downtown parking requirements, because, frankly, that's where a lot of these, a lot of these businesses are on Fifth Street or downtown, but, there isn't really a market for, people building new drinking only establishments. You often kind of have a food component with it, and maybe I'll in 2 years where someone will build a bar only, but just kind of nationally, that's not really a trend that we've seen. So.
So what you're asking is to create a single standard for off-street parking requirements?
Yep.
Got it. Which would right now just be a reduction, like kind of halving it-ish,
Just about. Yeah.
right?
It wouldn't pertain to those existing units. They rehab the building
Yeah,
downtown,
right.
where there's no parking requirement,
Yep.
so.
Exactly.
It's only for anything new down
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing to kind of note. And what I was kind of getting at with my point earlier is, this use is not very common. just
Yeah.
being frank with you all. But it is important that we have, as Ken brought up a good point last time. That a restaurant and a bar, a bar exclusively have very different uses and needs. So,
Will this make your job easier?
yes, yes, absolutely.
Then you're also looking for something on the retail end, right? Also.
Yeah, these are one sort of the redlined copy that's in your packet is just one single recommend. These are two separate issues, but I'm kind of packaging them together because they're both in the realm of off-street parking, and they're small. So is the downtown parking discussion, but that's kind of a much broader.
Right.
That has broader implications than either of these changes. So.
and you included the codes, the changes to the code in the actual document itself, right? You redlined it and.
Yeah. Yep.
Comments,
Yep.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
I think we're ready to move forward on those next meeting.
Whoa. Really? That's good.
Move forward with something, Jeff.
Right, that was my point.
We try to knock off the low-hanging fruit early.
Knock it off.
I would agree with that. I mean, this, of all of them, this was the one that, to me, was the easiest to comprehend, the easiest to make the change to without having any major complications with.
I guess to clarify, would you want to, because in my recommendation, I didn't include the thing about the patio space, was that a change this board would like to see that included in the parking calculations, or is that
Total
okay
seating.
to leave off?
Part of the total seating, I guess my only question is, and I think the social house added that after fact,
Sure.
you know, what do we,
It's been there for a long time, before the social house.
but it wasn't used as a patio, I don't think, for
It
that
was.
business, was it?
It was.
Okay.
It's been used, at least 3 or 4 different businesses before have used it.
I think it ought to be, the patio space ought to be included in the parking.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I don't know what the commissioner.
I will
It'd be appropriate.
I think it would be,
Clear and dry. It's all seating.
add that to the recommendation before it goes to council. So, if this board chooses to recommend it, so.
so I would entertain a motion.
So we motion to recommend the streamlining the off-street parking requirements, right? And then do we also want to do the retail, or that's later? We're not doing that yet.
Yeah, it's
This is all a
one
singular
thing.
thing,
These-
right?
these-
All
yeah.
together.
Both retail, the off-street parking, beautiful. Yeah? Similar motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded that we proceed with the changes to the retail parking regulations as proposed by staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay,
Thanks, Aaron.
we got that done. You have another item that says on other business, so.
One last thing for our new commission member. Anytime we get notified by Franklin County, anytime there's a subdivision. I don't remember if it's a mile.
Mile and a
Anyhow,
half.
Mile. Thank you. Mile and a half from our borders. So I bring that to this board in case they have any comments. But this is just off Highway A here. This is Alexander Estates Plat 7, re-subdividing 3 existing lots into 5 lots. These lots are R1A compliant. The applicant said that they want to build duplexes. There's some existing duplexes on this cul-de-sac here. So I didn't have any comments. It looked, the street's already there. So I didn't have any comments on this one.
Just for my information, so they send this to us as a courtesy? We don't
Correct.
really-
In case we have any comments.
We can send comments.
Yeah.
But they can.
They don't have to listen to us. Yeah.
They never listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, right, yeah.
They have yet to,
Like, thanks, but no
yeah,
thanks.
Yeah.
exactly. They have yet to listen.
For me,
in.
I think more so than anything, Matt, it's a prerequisite to what's gonna happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
What's next,
like
and you
that.
kind of get to know that, hey, well, this is the change that was made. Usually it's not 3 lots to 5, usually it's, here's 142 lots coming in right outside the city limits, that's
Or
the
if it's not
difference.
compatible with our comprehensive land use
Sure.
outside of our city, it's,
We'd like to know that as well.
exactly.
But even with that, there's nothing we can really do about it.
Nope.
No.
No.
Legally now.
Yeah. If we get to a certain size, I believe if you have 50,000 people in Missouri, you can have some sort of, I don't know, Mark, you get some sort of extraterritorial? No? Okay, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about, so.
There for a while, we had.
Just
standard
ignore me.
form. We would send them every time. They would send us something on a subdivision. It was just the standard paperwork back, because the same thing always applied, but they never listened to it, so. Okay,
Anywho, that's all I have.
that's all you have. Anything from the commissioners? If not, I would entertain one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded that we adjourn at 8:17. Motion is adjourned.
Thank you.
Always hate getting into these discussions, because you just,
What's that?
there's so much to get into.
Oh, yeah. And I just don't even know what I don't know, so,
You'll learn.
yeah.
And Matt,